welcome to Labour Lens. I am Sharon Ijason. On this week edition of the program, we'll be focusing on workers in the non-academic staff unions, specifically SANU and NASU. For them, they are concerned about the fact that they have not received payment like their other counterparts, ASU. We also have new stories for you. We will be right back. It's the final service in honor of former trade unionist in Nigeria, Chief Frank Kokori. He was a former General Secretary of the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG. Frank Ovie Kokori has been laid to rest in his hometown, Ovo Inland, in Itop East Local Government Area, Delta State. In attendance at the church service is the Minister of Petroleum, who represented the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Governor of Delta State, the President of NUPENG, members of the House of Representatives, and notable personalities across the country.
Frank Kokori's legacies will live on. This is the man of uncommon courage. He is the man that is selfless, or that was selfless. This was the man who fought for democracy.
The late Kokori was known as a committed and dedicated defender, promoter, and fighter for workers' rights, as well as the democratic rights of citizens. Kivi Kokori spoke about the life and times of his father.
He was a nationalist to the core. So for the governor of the state, being from another party, to also attend and show the solidarity that he has shown, I say thank you to him and all the people, and to NUPENG, because NUPENG has been awesome.
Frank Kokori, who spent time in prison due to the battles he fought against military rule in the country, is remembered by his former associates for his contributions to collective struggles for the emancipation of the working people.
Kokori can never be forgotten, but I have one regret. Nigeria ought to have recognized him while he was alive and give him a national award.
He was the first general secretary that came up with the constitution of NUPENG. Even while he was out of office, he was giving us advices, and we are tapping from his depth of wisdom. He's a wonderful man.
Frank Kokori was the 7th chairman of the 7th Governing Council of the Michael Imodu National Institute for Labor Studies, MINILS, where he promoted labor education between 2019 to 2022.
They should not consider the establishment of universities for political aggrandizement, for political enhancement of their political profiles, but for the purpose of ensuring that education is well grounded. You can imagine a state that cannot fully and adequately fund one university will establish about 4 or 5 universities where it cannot even establish, where it cannot properly fund one university, establishing 4 or 5 universities. So for us as a union, our agitation is that there is not enough respect given to the university system, particularly in terms of funding. And there must be something that should be done by state governors to increase the funding of state universities through their subventions. In many cases, you see universities giving only 10% of subventions to the state universities, and then expecting those state universities to go and look for the balance, which for us is unacceptable and very wrong.
That a government exists for the welfare of citizens. And so it is out of place for any official government to deny workers their due. In this case, government entered an agreement with SANU. SANU has kept its own part of the agreement by suspending the strike. It behoves on government to release the 4 months withheld salaries. And I think that doing that is the right thing to do. I want to call on Mr. President to ensure that his directives are obeyed and ensure that workers of federal universities are paid their 4 months withheld salaries. Our counterparts in the teaching have been paid. And I think that what is good for the teaching staff is also good for the non-teaching staff. And that will bring industrial harmony in public universities.
The government and the union enter into an agreement. Part of that agreement is non-victimization clause, that nobody should victimize for participating in this strike. So we continue engaging with the former government of President Muhammadu Buhari for this money that was withheld to be paid. But you know, by the time you knew it, it was transition period, so nothing could be achieved then. But know that government is a continuum. So we continue engaging this present government for this withheld salaries to be paid. But we were surprised to hear that a few weeks back, our colleagues in the teaching field, we are paid. We are happy about that because we all go to the same market. Some of them are our spouses, some of them are our friends. We're happy about that. But what we are saying is that what is source for the goods is also source for the gander. So we are calling on government to do the needful. If the government does the needful, then the union will reconsider its ultimatum. But if government fails to do the needful within this time frame, then the union will consider this last option, which is strike. Strike does nobody any good, but it's always a last option.
We lost some of our members during the strike. And now the withheld salary that was not paid is also affecting with the economic situation of this Nigeria. The salary is not even enough for you to even transport yourself to your working place. So we are actually suffering. And we are angry. The fact that we were segregated, we were treated as a second-class members in the university, we are angry actually, and our members are also agitating. So we gave the federal government an ultimatum of 1 week, and after then, if the salary is not paid, we are going to embark on a strike.
There's even no basis for a state to create a university where you know you cannot fund it, because the facilities must be there must be put in place, and where you want to have a qualitative education, certainly all requirements, all aspects of facilities, as I mentioned, must be there on the ground to have a very conducive learning and teaching environment in the university. So our state governors should do everything possible to see that they equip their universities with all the necessary equipment and facilities that are required to have a very effective university system, education system in the university.
On the profile interview segment this week, I'll be speaking with the national president of SANU. It brings us up to speed on the welfare of workers in the sector, while also speaking on the Oresonya's report and the position of the union. Good to have you on the program.
Nice being here, Sharon. Thank you for having me.
A lot is happening in the world of work, and particularly for the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian universities. Your leadership is concerned about the no work, no pay rule that was initiated during the Buhari administration. But right now, President Tinubu has actually approved and started disbursement of the withheld salaries for members of ASU. Can you tell us why we don't have members of SANU yet to receive their own payment of withheld salary, even though members of SANU and NASU were the first to go back to work?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this very topical issue, burning issue, when our discussions with government broke down and we had to declare an industrial dispute. After like 2 months, the federal government, then under the Ministry of Education, the minister was Madam Adamu, in conjunction with the ministry officials, and then the executive secretary of NUC invited us to the table to discuss the issues. And for the benefit of our viewers, those issues were the discontinuation of the renegotiation exercise that was going on between us and the federal government on the 2009 signed agreement. And then, of course, the non-payment of some of our allowances, like the under allowances, then the non-release of stabilization funds, and then dissolution of governing councils of the federal universities, and then some other issues that have been pending Then during the negotiations we have had with the government and the minister, then we reached an agreement to suspend the strike after convincing us and showing us clearly that those demands were going to be met, and that the 2023 appropriation, or the budget as you may want to call it, would encapsulate and contain those allowances. Clearly, we were shown that the sum of 50 billion naira was earmarked for the payment of allowances to all workers in the universities. And then the salary increment, which the government offered to pay 25 and 35% for workers in the universities and other tertiary institutions. Then the sum of another 100 billion was also made available for workers in other tertiary institutions. Then,
so very quickly, before you go ahead with some of the salient issues or points that your union is actually faced with, what has been the response of your members? What's the state of mind of your members? What kind of calls have you been receiving from your members concerning the withheld salaries that is not yet being disbursed to SANU members?
Well, we have been under pressure. As leaders, we have been under pressure. Our members really have run out of patience simply for the injustice meted on us as non-teaching staff. Because if you recall, in October, the current president, President Tinubu, gave a waiver that 4 months of the withheld salaries should be released to workers in the universities. And we received that news with some mixed feelings. However, we felt it was a departure from the past. From November, running fast forward to this month, early this month, ASU members received 4 months of the salaries as promised by the president. But conspicuously missing were the non-teaching staff, which made up of
how many months? How many months is that of SANU and NASU?
No dime was released to us.
How many months is the government owing? Is it 4 months or 2 months?
4 months. 4 months.
But were you on strike during the period that ASU was on strike last year?
Yes, ASU started their strike in February, ended in October. We started ours in March, ended in August.
Okay.
So that was what happened. So the 4 months that was promised us, we never saw till today. And the agitation started from our different campuses, asking questions. And upon inquiry, we got to understand that the memo conveying the approval of the president from the Office of the Chief of Staff contained only ASU. And that was what led to the payment of only ASU members by the Accountant General through the IPPIS. And we had to now write a protest letter to the Chief of Staff and the Minister of Education, calling their attention to the injustice meted on us. And as I'm talking to you, those letters were acknowledged. Immediately they were received, but we never got any response, positive response from the Office of the Chief of Staff. And that was why we started engagements. We reached out to the Minister of Education, and he confirmed to us that the approval, or reconfirmed to us that the approval given by the president was for all the unions, and that he was going to interact with those that matter, or those that were handling the issue. That was the last we heard of it, and nothing has still not come.
Very quickly, not that we are deviating from the crux of the matter, I would like to know what your opinion is on trade unionism and the right to strike, the right to protest. Because when the last administration introduced a no work, no pay policy, I know many trade unionists were not in support of this because according to ILO convention, which Nigeria is a party to, we know that people have the right to protest and go on strike. But as a trade unionist, how would you react to this development?
For any democratic setting and a civilized society, no government should attempt to stifle the voice of the masses or voices of the people. The right to strike, the right to protest are inherent within the laws of this country, and like you said, even beyond. And therefore, we find it absurd that any government will just wake up one day and say people cannot air their views, people cannot differ from the voices of their leaders. So we were taken aback, actually. And no unionist will ever support this idea of stifling the voice of the masses. And so doing that is like, beating a child and asking the child not to cry. So the laws of the land gives us the right to strike when we have, but there are processes and procedures. And that's why when government decided to invoke the no work, no pay, we told them that that was illegal, because in the agreement we signed with the then government of Buhari, the last portion read non-victimization clause. And that was clearly spelled out that no member of our union shall be victimized or denied of any his or her right for taking part in the strike.
Very quickly, collective bargaining agreement is one particular process that both workers, employers of labor, and governments do actually participate in. If you would agree with that particular statement, what would be your reaction towards the fact that employers of labor and at times government many times refuse to actually yield to the collective bargaining agreement? Because before SANU, NASU, ASU decide to withdraw their services, they've had long-time agreements with government, but it's because government could not meet up with its demands. It's why they actually have to go on strike. So what more do you have to say about the fact that collective bargaining agreement is something that we do not honor in the country? Also, I'd like you to tell us if maybe some of the demands that was reached as some of the demands or requests by the union, maybe they are too bogus, and maybe you actually have to sit down on the table to start the conversation all over, and probably maybe there might be a more realistic agreement.
Well, when you say something, when you call something as collective, bargaining agreements, it means it's something consensual. Both parties agree to sit down on some terms and conditions. Nobody signed those agreements under duress. That you shift your base, they shift their base, you meet the middle ground and sign. It was something collective. So it is only expected that both parties respect what they have signed. But like you mentioned, it is most at times a refusal on the part of the employers. You sign an agreement, willingly, and then only to come and renege, thereafter. It's quite absurd. It's quite intriguing that that you as an employer, would sit with your employee, discuss, an agreement, and then sign, and then you come to refuse to, respect it. So my position on this is that as long as this refusal to, adhere to these collective bargaining agreements, continues, there will continuously be, industrial dispute, and this will retard development, will also stop progress and also functionality of workers in their places of work. And then employers of labor should also understand that you must not sign what you cannot give. We know what is on the table. We know what is in the purse of government. We know what the government can give. In the case of our universities, for example, the membership of SANU, a lot of us are accountants who work in the bursary. We know what the universities receive. We pay workers in the university, and therefore, whatever we discuss with them, we know clearly what government gives, what is on the table, and what the government can afford. So no union leader, and especially from the non-teaching stock, will come to the table empty-headed without necessarily having the background of what is in the purse of government. Agreements are never signed or cast in iron or in stone. So when you sit and sign an agreement, and then implementation becomes a problem, the onus is on the employer to re-invite the employee or the union or whatever representatives to sit down again and then talk reality and talk sense. In this particular manner, on this particular issue, provisions were already made in the 2023 budget. I've told you 50 billion naira was appropriated and approved by the National Assembly to take care of the earned allowances. We do not know where this money went to because it's the 2023 budget, has elapsed. And now we were told that it was carried over in 2024. We have not seen anything. The salary increment of 25 and 35%, even though that was not what we asked for, but it was now awarded to us. It was also captured, and the sum of 100 billion naira was also, encapsulated in the 2023 budget. But no dime was released.
What is the ministry saying? How are they reacting to this development, owing to the fact that you are aware that it was budgeted for and it was not expended?
If only they could tell us or explain, what happened, we wouldn't have been dumbfounded. But the issue is that nobody is saying anything. Government will always wait until when workers strike or when workers protest. That is when they begin to start explanations.
Now you've issued an ultimatum that within 7 days, you would actually have to embark on an industrial action. Why do you actually have to do this at this time? And what does government need to do to maybe perhaps prevent this strike from happening?
What baffles me and many of our colleagues is that this story that we're talking about is in the public glare, is in the purview of everybody in Nigeria. So I don't know why it is difficult that up till this point, our managers, our leaders in government finds it difficult to now invite or approach us to say, this is what happened. Please bear with us or give us also a number of days, this money will be paid. Like we said, this is an arrears of something that was kept somewhere. And it is very easy, within 24 hours, maximum 48 hours, if government is serious, they could still pay this money. But what is even more intriguing in this particular matter about the withheld salary for the non-teaching staff is that the president of the country has approved, has conveyed by his spokesperson, and the Minister of Education has confirmed that the approval has been given by the president. So who is now subverting the president's approval? We are taken aback and we cannot understand this. And that's why we have to come out this way, because we are not slaves in Nigeria. We are not slaves in our universities. We work in the same environment. We are happy for our colleagues in the academics that have gotten that 4 months, even though that is not exactly what they asked for. But what is good for the goose is also good for the gander.
So very quickly, I'd like you to respond to the Oronsaye's report. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has ordered that it should be implemented. You lead workers that are actually in the public system. How has your members been reacting to this? Is there any form of panic, or is it well received by your members?
Well, as a labor leader, it's quite intriguing again to hear our leaders trying to invite problems for themselves. Here we are in a country called Nigeria, where the economy is in its doldrums, where people are suffering, where people are finding it difficult to even feed, where you are talking about a report that was submitted to government, over 10 years ago, and then 2 other previous governments claimed that they had commissioned its implementation. And today, President Tinubu is saying that they should implement. So I don't know what type of implementation. If Tinubu's implementation would be like that of Jonathan and Buhari, fine and good, because we never saw anything happening. We need to put our thinking caps. Already people are protesting everywhere about hunger, about starvation, about deprivation, about lack of so many amenities. So are you now telling us that these people, if you send them to the labor market, no additional security issues will come up? And is that our priority? How much are you going to save if you scrap government agencies? How much is the salary involved? If there is an agency of government or an arm of government that should be collapsed, that should be merged, is the National Assembly. For me, we do not need a bicameral, legislature in Nigeria. We can collapse the House of Reps with the Senate. For example, the House of Reps has more representation. It represents more communities. It's more local to our communities than the Senate. Most of these senators are former governors, former ministers, former traditional rulers, and so on. They are already rich. They are already fat. They are belly full. They don't need any money that will come extra. So closing that the Senate will be the best thing that will happen, because so much money will be saved and it will be pumped into the economy, and many other people will have jobs to do, and government can provide more amenities. So Oresanya report implementation is just a distraction. The National Assembly should be matched. We should have one assembly. The House of Reps is enough to cover and help Nigerians, put any law you want. It's more vibrant, you have more younger people there, and they have more to offer. So this is our position, or this is my own personal position, because the Oresanya report is overtaken by events. Any attempt to come and say you want to merge A and B, B and C, D and E, you are just going to create more problems for the society. And any sensitive government should understand that the security situation today is exacerbated by idle minds. So sending people out of their jobs, you will need to spend more money that you are claiming or intending to save by removing these people from offices in trying to fight insecurity.
You have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a great evening too. Bye.
Now go there, Sosi. And that's all we can take on today's edition of the program. Join us next week for a fresh edition of the show. I am Sharon Ijason. Thanks for watching, and remember that labor creates wealth.